Welcome to the Sports Trading Card Hall of Fame. Today I'm going to be talking about the 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. This is one of the most iconic sports cards of all time, and it comes from a set that for a lot of people they consider it to be either the most significant card set of all time or in the top two. And okay, technically, anybody who puts together a list isn't entirely wrong in terms of what's the best and based upon the criteria that they put forward. For the most part, I don't mean that you can't be wrong about it. It's just that we all approach it from a different perspective and for a different reason. Myself, I think that it is a highly, highly overrated card set because it wasn't all that monumental of a card set in terms of the industry. It was just iconic for collectors. That was the key to the 1989 Upper Deck set. It did impact the industry, but just not right away. The only impact it had for 1990 was Leaf joined the scene, but even with Leaf, they weren't making cards in the same way that Upper Deck had been making them. It wouldn't be until 1991 that we would finally see the industry really make a major change when you saw Fleer create Ultra, Topps created Stadium Club, and Score created Pinnacle. That's when the industry changed. But the reason that the industry changed wasn't because of Upper Deck, it was because of Leaf, Action Packed, and Skybox, which all entered in 1990 and reshaped the game in across the board. Upper Deck itself really didn't make that big of an impact. I mean, it came in and it was kind of like a crazy experiment, and it was a mixed result because people were both really excited about the card and they were also really intimidated by it. The industry wasn't quite ready for it and didn't know how to react, which is why it took a couple of years for the industry itself to change pace and to shift over to not what Upper Deck was doing, but to fall into the same space as Upper Deck. In terms of shifts to the industry, you're looking at 88 Score, you're looking at technically 52 Topps, 1990 Pro Set, 1993 Finest. These are the card sets that really did reshape sports cards. But the reason that we talk about 89 Upper Deck with such adulation is the fact that it did do a lot of really interesting things and important things, mainly because as we progressed through the 90s, we kept looking back at 89 and seeing the things we wanted to see, seeing the things we needed to see. And as collectors, like I said, collectors really got excited about 89 Upper Deck. Not to the extent that people seem to remember about it, but still it was something that made a big positive impact in the hobby. The key to the set, though, comes down to a particular card, one iconic card that stands out from all the rest, which is the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. Now, Griffey had 4 different rookie cards, in-pack rookies. He had Bowman, Donruss, Fleer, and Upper Deck. These 4 cards were the cards that we were able to collect on a regular average basis. And 2 of those cards are really iconic. Both Bowman and Fleer have a very iconic look that works well for a rookie card, and they would stand as fairly iconic rookie cards if it wasn't for Upper Deck. It's just that Upper Deck had a very different look to it it's kind of like the Mona Lisa of sports cards in a way. It's this one card that has this strange look that you can't quite look away from, and it always sits with you. It's a very unique card for reasons that I don't entirely understand, because there's so many rookie portraits that have been released on cards, and this one just has a different look to it. For some reason, it comes through in a different way. Now, the 2 big things about it are, 1, it was card number 1 in this very notable set. And number 2, it was the dawn of a career that would really define 90s baseball card collectors and fans, because Ken Griffey Jr. was rarely the number 1 star in the league. There was always somebody who was having a better year or who was a more exciting prospect that everybody was falling in love with. He is often forgotten, probably usually forgotten, for being a part of the home run derby where Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa broke the home run record. when you were getting into August, Ken Griffey Jr. was right there with them in the thick of it, and people were still considering that Ken might be able to be the one to break the record. It's just that as August and September progressed, the other two seemed to kind of leap forward for some reason. It was magical how well they were able to just kind of pull ahead, and Ken got lost in the shuffle. And so it's easy to forget now that Ken was so much a part of that conversation, but that's kind of the nature of his career, because a few years earlier, baseball had a strike which cut the season short. And in running up to that break, Ken was on pace to break the home run record. And a lot of people, probably most people, believe that he would have broken the record if the strike hadn't happened. So when the strike first happened, the conversation was all about Ken Griffey Jr.'s run at the record. But after you've lost 2 weeks, you've lost any window of opportunity to break the record. And so the conversation shifted primarily to Cal Ripken Jr., who had the streak going, and the big conversation was, okay, so if the strike breaks, is he going to be the first person back in order to maintain the streak? Kind of a weird take to have, but regardless, Ken just never seemed to be the singular star. He was always that guy right in there, the number 2 at all times. But over time, that becomes the key to a lot of careers, is the fact that he's the guy who never went away. He was always up at the top. And so very few baseball players have had the ability to be in the conversation at the highest end for as long as he was able to enjoy. And so through the whole 90s, there was this one player who was always right at the top of the conversation, Ken Griffey Jr., and he had this one really iconic rookie card from a really iconic set. So it really helped to define the spirit of baseball card collecting throughout the whole 1990s. But there was another thing that was important about him, which was the fact that he was a very seemingly accessible guy. Obviously, his father had been not a legendary baseball player, but a well-known and well-respected baseball player. But the big thing about Ken was that he was always very youthful. This was a guy who wore his baseball cap backwards. Almost nobody else did that. And he loved he was very playful. He loved to do things that kids related to. And so he seemed like some high schooler who just stumbled into the Major League Baseball and was really good at it. And so he was able to capture a generation because of the fact that he was the one guy in baseball that younger fans totally locked into, and that's my guy. And so that means that as kids are turning into adults, they're looking back at a single player that they totally related to, who was absolutely amazing throughout the whole decade. And again, there's this one iconic rookie card. And so throughout the decade, this one card, this one singular card kept standing out. You couldn't look away from it. It looked right. It looked strangely ideal. It was from the right set. It was the right player. And for kids coming up, this was the card that they kept being presented with. When it came to Ken Griffey Jr., you'd see the playful cards where he's got his baseball cap backwards, or he's horsing around on the field, or chewing bubble gum, or whatever he's doing. You see all these images, and then this one Upper Deck card keeps showing up. But a big part of it also comes down to the luck of the fact that Upper Deck made a pretty strong choice of putting him as the first card in the set. This was significant because he was not the big prospect that everybody was expecting. So normally for a card number 1, if you're going to take the time to choose somebody specific, you're going to go for somebody who everybody is already expecting is going to be a success. That's how you sell packs. You give people what they want. This is the guy who everybody wants. They did go ahead and take a flyer on this and happen to put a card set out that as the season progressed, he became the card that should have been number 1. They were lucky for that. And in the years that followed, they weren't quite as lucky with the particular player that they put at card number 1 in terms of foresight. But this adds to the mystique, the legend of the card, which is that Upper Deck was brilliant in doing this. Well, they were brilliant in doing this in the same way that anybody is brilliant by being lucky in their choice. It is incredibly fortunate for card collectors that the card set that ended up being this iconic card set happened to have the player who ended up being this iconic player with a photo that happened to be this really iconic card. It's almost like the hand of God stepped down and said, okay, I'm taking this one for you guys. I'm going to give you a gift. But for the 1990s, it was a tremendous gift. It helped to give us a continuity that we needed, because we could look back in previous times and we could see the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card. We could look back and see the famous Honus Wagner card. There were certain cards we could all look back at and see that, and we could all, it defined its era. And the Griffey card was able to do that for the 90s, even though it's technically a proto-90s card by being 1989. It's really important for card collectors to have that centrality, to have that one card that everybody recognizes. In the new millennium, you could argue that maybe the Topps LeBron James rookie card might fit that bill, but that's as close as you're going to find to any new millennium card, including the year 2000, that is a standalone iconic card. The 90s had a couple of them that you could pull out as individual cards that were distinct, that everybody could recognize. New millennium hasn't had that. And so in terms of a great legendary iconic card that everybody recognizes, I doubt we're going to see any cards supplant the Ken Griffey Jr. card. So that is probably going to stand the test of time through the decades as the last great baseball card. And it will be interesting to see moving forward if something is able to pop up. I don't know how in the way that cards are approached nowadays. It may take a major regression of the card collecting industry in order for card companies to, or pretty soon it'll be the card company, to collapse in on itself and rebuild a singular iconic card to dominate the imagination of all collectors. I don't know. It is possible to see, but this card does stand as the last of those. And that's why I'm putting it here or why I wanted to talk about it here in my Stories of Cardboard here at the Sports Trading Card Hall of Fame. So, if you have any stories about this card, like getting it, then definitely let me know in the comments below. If you haven't seen the other stories that I've done over time, over the course of, well, I've been doing this for a year and a half. So if you haven't gone and checked those out, do check those out. And look forward to the upcoming videos that I do. And thank you for watching.